each one of you coming from different parts of India. And to you, Paul and Carlo, thank you so much for gracing Canvas and making it so special. I think it's said that one of the most witty and unusual conversation happens between a blind wife and a deaf husband. And also sometimes between a hairstylist and a fighter pilot. The stylist says, I don't teach you how to fly, you don't teach me how to cut. So I'm in a situation like this today, with such design luminaries coming into India. But again, the beauty lies that I have two people. One who looks at the world from outside in, and the other one looks at from inside out. I think that's the beauty of two gentlemen who have presented today. You know, I like to keep this session intentionally very short because I know we have got something waiting for all of us. And I like to keep it short because I like to talk less. I like to have more of you talking, and also would love to request the audience can also have some pointed questions to both of them. Yeah. So I think coming to you, Paul, first and foremost, your body of work is so inspiring. How do you relate to empathy in design? And how tough it is to focus on simplicity and imagination in order to create unique people-centric designs that are timeless?
Thanks for the question. I think the first sort of sketches that I showed, as I'm drawing, I'm sort of, as I said, I'm imagining my experience as I've journeyed through life. You know, traveling here. You know, I'm sort of an outsider, an observer, and I've done that since I was a little boy. You know, I've been very curious to see how people live, what makes them happy, what gets in the way and makes them unhappy, and I used the skills of design to create moments of positivity. That's kind of, in essence, what I've done for years and years, is just look, and I love interacting with people, conversing, laughing a lot, as we've done a lot this few days. And so it's like an observer.
Okay.
Would you like me? I agree with all of this. Let me also say about design. I think design is the most profound human thing. And there's a beautiful sentence by Herbert Simon, a Nobel Prize winner, a great researcher from the past century, who said basically design, well, the natural science look at how the world is. If you're a scientist, you try to describe how things are. But design looks at how the world could be. And look at how things could be, how a building could be, how the things in our home could be, how cities could be. I think it's really one of the most profound human activities, how we can shape, hopefully for the better, the space we live in. And especially now with AI, that's actually doing a lot of things. AI can very easily take the past and extrapolate. But the AI would never be able to do what is not there anymore. So somehow design is about doing what hasn't been done yet, and again, to transform our lives. So I think that's why I think we should all be engaged with design conversations. I want to finish with another question. Another thing they asked me upstairs with a question about, where does your design idea come from? And so Paul was saying by traveling and so on. And I'll say something, not because we are with you today, but it's in the shower. And this is true. And there's actually research that shows that usually when your brain, you try to crack something, to design something, and your brain, goes round in circle, you don't find a solution, and then when you disconnect, and it can be, I'm not joking, there's scientific papers on this, when you disconnect because you're in the shower, you're relaxing for something, there's even some papers showing when you smoke cannabis, then that's when you actually got the big idea. Well, really, I'm not joking. And by the way, in the U.S., cannabis is legal, so I can say this. So I think so showers are very important. I'm sure we will appreciate that.
So also I'd like to add that in our conversations, he was talking about mirrors with cameras that can see you. So maybe that's part of your process, huh?
He was very concerned about that.
I was concerned. He was like, every mirror should have a camera connected to AI, and I was like, sorry, what?
No, that's why we should explain that we shouldn't scare. No, we were talking about now technology is embedded in different ways. But yes.
Thank you, Carlo. That's interesting. Since you do a lot of work around big data, and we're talking about, how does big data, Carlo, play a role in urban planning of cities today, both for the developed and developing economies? Further, what are the consequences for design? I think that's more important. And how it can help design the cities of future to much better, more contextual, more relevant.
Yeah. Well, I think many of us have been to the beautiful city of Barcelona. And Barcelona was expanded in the 19th century by a great architect called Ildefonso Cerdà. And if you go back to Ildefonso Cerdà and read his book actually is called The Great Theory of Urbanization, there's a few pages where he dreams about the future, where data, your question is about data, where data could turn planning and design, he says, almost into a science. And the reason is that the way we've been describing a city for thousands of years was by measuring bricks and stones and the physical space. But as we know, the city, the beauty of the city, the magic of the city, is what's here tonight. Is interaction, is networks, is conversation. The magic was happening outside before this conference. And for the first time today, again, data, big data, is a powerful tool to show us not only the physical city, but also the city of relationship. At the Venice Biennale, back almost 20 years ago, we actually did a project in 2006, where for the first time ever, we looked at how the fact that we're all connected online can show actually the movement and the life and the metabolism of the city in real time. Something now, if you just open Google Maps, you find the same. You see all this kind of data. It shows you how, if there's congestion or not. So data means that we can see dimensions of the environment that we couldn't see before, we couldn't measure before. And of course, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it, as consultants say, but you cannot design it. So you cannot use, so better knowledge of the environment means we can actually turn it into better design. And so I think big data is very interesting. We need to use it in a very careful way, because data also mean, I'm very concerned, for instance, about the fact that a lot of data, I told you, when we did this project at Venice Biennale 2006, the data was very coarse. We used it totally anonymized. You didn't know anything about, it was resolution like 0.5 kilometer, and each of us at the time, not everybody has a cell phone. Each of us had kind of 12 data points per day or 15 data points per day. Well, today this thing collects thousands of data points about me with an accuracy of 1 meter, and that data is shared with on some servers in Silicon Valley, in the US, in China. It depends on the apps you're using. So data is also problematic, but data also means we can know better the environment, and if we know it better, we can hopefully improve it.
Thank you. Quick one to you, Paul, since you talk of power of imagination. How do you recognize an idea whose time has come? And how further it impacts your approach to design?
I mean, I think, just going back to some of the work I showed, the coal piece, as I say, a very personal journey. But for me, that had to exist in that moment. I was responding to every newspaper I was reading, a lot of the scientific journals. There was COP26 in the UK, and I had this sort of nervous energy to sort of create a work that responded to that. And so sometimes there isn't a choice. But the way that I work, the studio works, me and Joanna, is that we flow, and we have ideas, we feel opportunities, and most of the time they drop when they're meant to drop. Obviously there's a plan, but we kind of let go a bit as well, because going back to this idea of data, that of course we need data, and we need science, and there's so much data can be used to kind of push us forward and solve a lot of problems. But on another way, I've spoken to sort of some architects, and they go, we use data so we can position benches where people flow. And I find that a bit odd, that kind of that strict logic. For me, ideas float, and I pick them. And I know that sounds a bit free and maybe not as clear as one would like, but there is a bit of serendipity and a bit of mystery to my creative process.
And more, sorry.
Can I say something that builds on that, about the ideas? I think the most important thing you were getting to it is about not the ideas you keep, but the ideas you kill. Being able to tell a good idea from a bad idea. And I think that's the important thing. I think you're very good at doing that, and saying, well, this is good, and then I pick this one, I kill all the other ideas. And this was summarized in a beautiful way by Ernest Hemingway, the great American writer. And at the end of his life, he gave an interview. I think it was on Vanity Fair or something. And he said he called that, he was proud that the most important thing is the bullshit detector. Why bullshit detector? Because then he can tell you what is a stupid idea. That's the most important thing. So then you can keep and focus on the other one. So I think you got a good bullshit detector.
No, but I'd like to go back to the shower actually, because I think the shower is an important one. Because I can imagine that in a lot of creative companies they say, okay, it's time to brainstorm. Let's have ideas. We sit around. We have pin interest. We brainstorm to. I mean, this is a very alien way of creativity. And for you, as you say, it's when you're showering, and that's got nothing to do with structure. So, it's like, yeah, it's somewhere
It's more
in there.
about arriving at finding the sweet spot, and then you feel, oh, that's it. And I mean, that's where my creativity bug ends.
Yeah.
Okay. To you, Carlo, rural poor and rural rich, urban poor and urban rich. How does your design consideration evolve and change when you have to deliver on the realm? The world is your oyster.
Look, I think somehow architectural, you cannot design anything, architecture design in the emptiness, in space. And so your context is important. And actually, the more difficult the context, usually, the more creative you have to be, because you need to respond. And so from this point of view, today I didn't show them because we focus on, because of the theme, but for instance, we're working on the favelas or informal settlements in Rio de Janeiro. That's a focus, a big team we have to see, that's one of the most important things. So what I say is sometimes with very little, in places where you got constraints, like money constraints, poverty constraints, and so on, that's where the best ideas come from. And in the case of Rio de Janeiro, it's really about, again, looking at low-tech and high-tech, mid-high-tech, to solve some of the biggest challenges. That there's some statistics. In the past decade, people would say that, every month we've been building one new London. Of course, not one London is a city, but with the equivalent urban fabric of one London on the planet. But few people know that London is mostly shacks, is mostly informal settlements. So please, that's a huge problem we should all address as architects. And again, low-tech, high-tech, more creativity can really become part of the solution.
Thank you. Quick one to you, Paul. Art is essentially, born from art. It's all about expression of freedom. Because art has the ability to bend anything, otherwise construed to be a straight line. You visit to the store, what are your first impressions? And also I will like to understand from you, what are your first impressions about Brand India going global?
I mean, my first impressions walking into the store was very energizing for me, because it was a continuation from yesterday, which is when we went to the factories. And in the factories, I'm not sure if everyone's visited, but there's something sort of quite magical happening there. There's a real transformation from raw material to fire and heat and alchemy, and there's casting, there's electroplating, and there's science, there's futuristic CNC machines, there's handcraft, and to see that sort of coalesce to these pieces, there's something, you've got to pay respect to those objects, whether they're my taste or all of them are my taste, but there's an intensity and there's a craft there. And I see that sort of possibility in India. I think there's this idea that anything we could dream up could be met with the creative enthusiasm and the partners here to bring it to life. And London obviously has that, but I think here has it to another scale. So that's why, again, it's really delightful for Joanna and I to be exploring.
And what are your impressions, Carlo, on the India story going global?
Yeah, again, we were all both impressed a lot yesterday about the intensity of the factory, the production. And my suggestion about this would be, I think go global, but keep local. Global, I mean, the best way to go to win in the global market is to be truly local, to keep your roots, to show ways to bring to the world, not what anybody can bring, many global brands can do with factories everywhere, but actually with your values, with the magic things we've seen here. So if you're able to turn that into design that's unique, and then that design would be, I think, the best way to go global and be truly local.
So you mean to say you would agree with me, proudly made in India for the world? Okay, I think my questions with them can be endless, but I would like to restrict, and I think I would like to quickly entertain a few questions from the audience. So I think anyone. You can press the mic.
This is firstly to thank both of you for the most brilliant presentation. This is me here. And, and the fact that the projects have such a lightness of being, even though so many are in wood and the sort of, the materiality that is used. It was brilliant and wonderful questions from you, Mohit Hajela, which really deepened their presentations. But I want to, on a very light note, tell you, Professor, that when you showed is it called the Mutti factory? Mutti factory with tomatoes. I think every Indian was relating to a film called Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, which translates to you will not get life again. I mean, life is only once. Because in Spain, they showed a tomato festival. And it became aspirational for every upper middle class Indian to land there in the tomato festival. So when you were showing all your troughs of tomatoes, I think you must ask Mohit to show you that film. That was my comment.
Thank you. No, yeah, thank you. I'll mention it to the Mutti family. I think I don't think I've seen the same move, but I think what you're referring to, because also both in Italy and Spain, tomato has almost this kind of sacred position, and all the festival in southern Italy, in Spain, they celebrate that. So thanks for mentioning.
Any questions from the audience? In fact, I wanted to ask you one quick question, Paul, that you use a lot of new age materials. What's your experience? Because I think today, the kind of sensitivity that is getting drawn, not just, we talk about biophilic urbanism, we are talking about so many things. So even materials is playing a big role. And you are experimenting a lot with new age materials. How do you think?
It's a crucial part of a creative journey. The material you choose can flip it from being something that has that connection and can focus an idea, or it can create a confusion. So within the studio, we play, we experiment, we try, but we understand the importance of it. And I think, it's that understanding of the material world. So yes, I think, the digital has allowed us to see so much more, but I wouldn't underestimate having a small corner of your workshop, if you're a creative person, where you can actually get hands-on and feel, because that's, for me, one of the most important ingredients.
Thank you so much. Sorry, please. Devashish.
Hi. Firstly, thank you for sharing your work with us. It was really inspiring and wonderful. This is for Carlo. I see a lot of technology and a lot of craft in your work. How do you marry the two?
Thank you. Craft is technology. I think sometimes people think about technology like high tech, but think about the way we do a tab, the way the craft is technology. It's only, and I think, probably the way to marry is not to care too much about it. I think you want to be aware of it. We were saying over these days, we're talking about the Italian Renaissance. It was in Italy a time when a lot of new ideas became new objects, new paintings, new architecture. And then people that was a lot related to the technology at the time. People invented new things, like for the first time they could draw a perspective. And then because of that, they started using it in painting, in architecture. But that was never the goal. That was only a tool. So somehow I would say the best way to use technology is to ignore it. But you need to be aware of it. But you ignore it, and then you focus on the ultimate thing, which is poetry. As Paul was saying, it is about, I would say it's about experience, how this can touch all of us in a deep way.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think the session has been very, very inspiring. And all I can say is that keep designing for the world. While we take as much pride in saying that this fraternity of some of the most brilliant minds are equally designing for the world. So thank you so much. Let's have more sessions in times to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
all.
so much.